Sergio back in today, and for our penultimate deck list for this highlight from BT21, I'm also going to be revisiting, Venmon now, even following its support from BT21, which finally gives it a new endgame, finally a endgame that can win consistently enough. And before we get into it, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and share around to help with the algorithm. Without further ado, let's crack into it. And starting off with the egg deck, this time I still run full playset of Digimon as the main egg of the deck, since it ends up being the draw engine for it, since most of the time, starting off in the early game, you are putting in cards into source via your own effects, thus allowing you to trigger this off pretty consistently in the early game. And then, given that it also came with the line, there's also the new Liberator Sumemon to help the deck DP climb by granting an all turns plus 3000 DP to the stack, barring that you maintain for at least 4 Venmons in source for it to remain active. Thus, given how both current climate and how the deck functions, I prefer not to run it, given how relatively inconsistent you meet that requirement. Well, that's it for the eggs. Now on to the rookies, which, for the most part, starting off with the main core of the deck, being a full playset of the good old BT18 Vem, and then BT11 Vem at, let me double check, 3, 6, 9, 12 copies now, since both end up being forms of searching for the deck. BT11 here being being at multiples due to its ruling text, as well as being able to search by suspending itself down to search top 3 to add either cards from the line or fusionize, and then adding on a Vem from the revealed to source. Or BT18 here is the on-play searcher for the deck, being able to grab any card that has Vem on in text, as well as being able to scoop up a Vem from the revealed as Vem source. Then, to round off the lineup, I run what is pretty much considered the worst Vem, being the new BT21 Vem, since its main effect is an on-play that has you pitching a Vem in text card to then return any card that's a non-Digi-Egg that's a Vem on text to hand. With this, with my reasoning here definitely being more so in lieu of efficiency for the deck in terms of climbing. Since going over, the main gimmick of the deck, your Venmons are used to reduce your evolution cost, with BT11 here being exclusively for Destromons and Galacticmons, while BT18 and BT21 being more inclusive, as it just specifically states any card with Venmon in text. Thus, I ended up putting the early game in mind, since having either of the other two Vems scoop any copy of BT18 and BT20 via their searching effect to then allow a more efficient climb into Snatchmon at normal cost of a champion. And speaking of which, that ends up segueing into our champion lineup, which, as to be expected, is a full lineup of Snatchmons, in which case I am running a 4-3 split between the new BT21 one and BT21. Since, for the most part, I end up putting consistency in mind, with BT21 being the searcher for the deck, while being another searcher in the deck, being able to top deck 3 on play and 1 Digivolving, to then add any Vem text cards to hand, well, any one Vem text card to hand, trashing the rest, as well as being able to add 2 Vems from Trashe onto any source, well, any card as bomb sources, which helps come into play towards the, well, tail end of the deck, since it doesn't need to exclusively be this Vem by itself. Then good old BT18 taking the cake as the utility one, excuse me, with its ability to digicross using 4 Vems to have it come out for a cost of 2, as well as having the nifty ruling ability that states as long as you have Vem on board, well, have only Vems on board, you're able to also make use of your trashe as digicross material, which from a empty board state with at least a Vem in raising and having Vems in trashe in hand, you're able to make use of the hand and trashe for it to come out with the digicross conditions. Then also it's able to once again be able to scoop up 2 Vems from trashe on Digivolve. Also having the nifty and very tempo efficient building to Digivolve into a Vem in text card at the end of your turn, as long as you have 4 Vems underneath it. Which, given how the deck runs, pretty much allows you to drop down certain things that can involve oversnatch, while also making use of any unused Vems you haven't used yet. Thus, and also, Heraldable-wise, both differ in the fact that, well, both have different effects whenever they see a Vem get returned to bot deck from source. With BT21 here being able to snipe out a cost 4 less Digimon, and BT18 here being the main aggro enabler for the deck, as it allows the stack to unsuspend and gain blocker until the end of opponent's turn. This definitely, well, again, being aggro heavy, or being able to use as a defensive option, since it allows you to have a blocker readily on hand. Then, obviously, for another option in mind, you can choose to run BT11 Snatch as a means to recur pieces mostly, since it also scoops up 2 Vems from trashe, and then if it sees itself having having 4 more Vems its own sources, you're able to recycle a Fusionize. In addition, it's another one with the unsuspend and blocker inheritable as well. Though I opted out of it, given that it kind of becomes redundant considering that the BT21 Vem can stack trashe and be able to also return Fusionize. And that's it for champion lineup. Now on to level 5s. And, well, in all expectancy, it's a full lineup of Destromon. This time I brought it to a 3-2 split between promo Destro and the new BT21 Destro. And well, here ends up being quite useful of a lineup since, well, promo Destro being the main bread and butter low 5 we'd want to Digivolve into to, well, devastate the opponent's board, since its on play 1 Digivolving effect gets to delete any amount of Digimon Tamers as starting play cost total of 3, then adding an additional 1 to the maximum cost total for each Vem you have underneath, which for the most part tends to land at 7 most of the time. As well, it has the ability to come out at reduced costs of 5 via digicrossing using Snatch and 4 Vems. Then BT21 here is included at 2, sort of as a means to ensure I see it, or at least try to see it, since it has the pretty useful one digiplaying effect to protect this stack from any effects that would trash cards from it until the end of an opponent's turn. With that actually including, besides source stripping, it also protects against the Digivolve, since that also is a means of trashing, specifically the top card of the stack. And speaking of which, it also gets to hit one opposing Digimon with the Digivolve 1 for every 2 Vems you have in its source. In addition, you also have a bit more leeway from this, since it has the alternate evolution cost to Digivolve off of Venmon for 6, thus allowing you to ramp up at most of the time I'd say 5, at a reduced cost of 5, because of practically the same cost off of Snatchmon, barring reductions. And it has the nifty alternates effect. Whenever it would leave the battle area, it actually gets spit out of them to then, recover from there. For inheritable wise, you end up getting 2 pretty useful defensive options for it. Promo Vem, being able to return 2 Vems from the source to then redirect an attack into the stack, while BT21 Destro is able to return 2 Vems to bot deck to end an attack outright, thus allowing you to play into quite useful abilities to be on the defensive. One, to simply crash a stack into your big body, or to end the attack outright, which, in my opinion, against Magna X, definitely is useful against a unprotected Magna X. Since, it will be, since it does end up preventing them from hitting security to then trigger their protections. Trigger their effect to then gain their protection. On this outright, stopping that by ending the attack and preventing a security check. And then from there, for my only consideration, barring older strategies with the deck, you can choose to include EX6 Raiji Ludo, more so for its equip and taunt effect, and it being a layer of protection against specifically deletion, since it would then, trash itself to protect the stack against deletion. And that's it for level 5s. Now on to level 6s. And to round off the deck, it is a full playset of the new BT21 Galacticmon as the main boss monster of the deck. Since, excuse me again, since it's able to enable the endgame. And you also have multiple routes to go into it, since you have the normal climb cost to go over Destromon, or alternatively, as same as the usual ones, 9 costs over Snatch to go into it. And that's also, that's before considering in any reductions via your Vem inheritables. And onto the main potatoes for it. With this allowing for the new, endgame for the deck. As on Evolve, you get to scoop up 4 Vems in text cards from trashe, to then allow you to trigger, to allow you to then use the new option Ragnarock Cannon from either hand or trashe, which essentially uses its main effect to then establish it for its Well, and then establish it on board for its delay array for use. Then it also has the nifty ability to start at the start of your own main phase to indiscriminately delete any opposing Digimon, to then make room for, well, the endgame. And then also carries the usual turns effect to protect it from leaving the battle area by returning 4 Vems from source to bot deck to prevent from leaving. And then obviously from there, wouldn't really be giving this deck much face, as another option you can choose to include is the copy of the good old BT21 Galactic as a means to, well, absorb more Vems, pop, and then constantly be taking time bomb turns, well, taking time bomb every time turn comes back to you if it is left unanswered, while also having the protections. And, well, that's it for the Digimon lineup. Once again, it's definitely up to preference, since, again, the ratios you're definitely up to preference given how you want to play. Well, now on to options. Well, options and tamers. And starting off with tamers, I end up going for a 2-4 split between the new Memory Sir Zenith and the good old BT18 Zenith as your, well, analog man for the deck, with the new BT21 Zenith being the Memory Star deck, and the, well, Davis equivalent for the deck, since it searches top 3, adds 1 Vem, and then trashes the rest. Well, BT18 here being, well, one of the enablers for the OTK strategy, since during your turn, whenever your Vem, well, your Digimon attacks, it returns 2 Vems from source to then hit opposing Digimon with Digimon, thus allowing you to combo off of with every card, well, your other, well, your specifically snatches to make them hit into BT21's range to be popped, as well as then triggering either effects as well, since 18 Snatch would see it and allow the swing to suspend. That's it for Tamers for the deck. Now on to options. For utility-wise, it's a 1-3 split between Black Scramble and Fusionize. Black Scramble here being able to add momentum, add tempo really, on reducing your evolution cost, and is able to recur use of pieces if you needed it, as well as being able to cheat out a Vem from trashe if checked in security, thus allowing it to work from there. And then Fusionize here being all the more useful card for the deck, as, well, it gets to reduce its own play cost, well, be played out practically for free as long as Snatchmon is on board, and allows itself to scoop up any Vem or Destro underneath one of your stacks, and then allow that stack to then digivolve up into a Destro or Galactic staying in trashe, thus also pushing up momentum for the deck, for the climb. With, again, its nifty security effect to reveal top 3 and play out a Vem from among them. And to run off options is the new, well, endgame for the deck, being Galacticmon's Digimon World 3's boss move of Ragnarock Cannon. With it, its main effect, deleting one opposing Digimon with the lowest play cost on board and establishing itself on the battle area, with its main sweet point being its delay. In it, whenever it sees a Galacticmon attack, it gets to pop itself to then delete opposing Digimon with the lowest play cost again, or if it doesn't delete anything, which on an empty board or against Magna X definitely would, well, a Magna X with protection, I mean, definitely would trigger it, thus allowing you to reduce the opponent's Digimon, well, burn away the opposing security down to 1, reflecting the move's ability to bring the player character's Digimon's HP down to 1, which sets up for, well, the brutal DK off the deck. Since once again, pairing with a Zenith, BT18 Zenith and BT18 Snatch allows for that swing to go through, unsuspend, and then swing to finish up for game. Then you also have the security effect to then play out any Vemmon text card with a play cost of 6 or less without paying cost. That's it for the deck list itself. Now on to combos. So the mulligan hand, for the most turn, again, as usual, definitely aiming for consistency. Preferably saying BT11 or BT18 Vem to start off your plays, and then definitely aiming to prioritize, establish either Zeniths early to start building up Vems in trashe via a shotgun with BT21 Zenith or gradual accumulation of BT8 via BT18 Zenith. And then from there, either snatches to make use of trashe Vems, and with 21 definitely further consistency by constantly, also shotgunning it and also searching for pieces. From there, it's just seeing the rest of your line, which, for the most part, you definitely don't need to worry about even if they end up in trashe. Especially with your end game of Ragnarock Cannon, since it's okay to see it in trashe or have it in hand, since, once again, Galacticmon is able to make use of it as long as you slot in any combination of 4 Snatchmon and text cards. And from there, definitely also want to hold on to any fusion IZs you see, as ends up bridging as well as restocking Vems in trashe. There, Black Scramble for tempo, and again, BT21 to pitch and recur pieces. This is then set up for other plays. Well, that's it for the mulligan hand. Now on to the actual combos. As for the combo game plan, pretty much it's, pretty straightforward really. Starting off, bouncing off of your first turn plays. Since at the least, you'd be establishing BT18 or 11 Vem in the back, raising, and then having start turn, seeing either opening up by shotgunning a Zenith, or pretty much playing out, searching them to find pieces. Since once again, given this Liberator deck has yet to receive its, Tamer Cheater champion. That tangent aside, either Zenith putting you at advantageous memory-wise or resource-wise. Again, Zenith saying memory to 3, or BT18 Zenith allowing you to trashe any Vems for draw 1, trashe 1 to set up. Going from the straightforward angle, simply just move up your Vem, though preferably, once again, the first turn Vem being a BT11 one from raising, suspend itself down, search top 3, add any Vem that you hit from top deck underneath its source, draw 1 off of the Dorian Herbal, and then go from there. Well, preferably aiming to slot in BT18 or BT21 Vem off of the effect to then make your climb into Snatchmon more efficient, since it brings the evolution down back to normal value of a champion. In this case, mostly aiming to get new BT21 Snatch off of it, since it'll then, well, once again, be more searching, trashing the rest of the card, and then be able to scoop up more Vem sources from trashe to then, well, allow further climb, since from this point, if you're sitting on Fusion Eyes, definitely, well, sitting on Fusion Eyes, while seeing either Destro or Galactic sitting in trashe, you get to then, well, further add more to the sources, and then immediately digivolve into either one. And depending on board state, and also what you have in hand, you're able to go for some crazy tempo options. Since again, you could then, well, digivolve into either Destros for the reduced cost based on the number of Vems underneath it, to then be able to interrupt the opponent. Or, since you do have the option, go immediately into Galacticmon while barring that you see Ragnarock Cannon in hand or in trashe. Since, once again, Galacticmon will then, on evolve, scoop up 4 Venmon in-text cards, which actually would like to bring up, as it doesn't specifically state Digimon cards, thus allowing you to make use of the rest of your inherent pieces that may be seen in trashe. Since you could then, well, instead of Vemmons, throw in Destromon or Snatchmon into the new snack, or heck, even any Zeniths or Fusion Eyes, and and if you need be, any spare Ragnarocks sitting in trashe, to fulfill that condition, to then make use of Ragnarock being able to play free from either board state. And from there, it's just a matter of your opponent needing to answer your board, lest they end up having to deal with a very much more fast game of Ragnarok going off. Since, after that, it's pretty much just setting up the opponent's side to then be able to swing in with Galactic, then trigger Ragnarok's effect to, mostly aim for the burn to 1 security effect. Since from there, as previously mentioned, off of other combos, let's throw in the hypothetical from what I was talking about. Make use of BT18 Zenith, return 2 Vems to bot deck, and then immediately trigger all the effects to then make it line up for Ragnarok's effect to attempt to delete, then not delete, and burn away security. Since the BT18 hatch would allow the stack to unsuspend, and with that attack still pending, swing in on the very last security to then swing in and end the game right there and then. Well, it's pretty much it in terms of the straightforward strategy, since, again, this deck is pretty much piece reliant and stacking up your game plan to adjust to what your opponent has to offer, since for the most part, even if you establish Galacticmon early, you don't need to reliably stay on a big stack Galactic, since you could just let the first stack die to then reestablish a whole lot of M's sitting in trash. Since you are pretty much constantly pretty consistent in the deck, given how many consistency pieces the deck has. And well, that has been my look at Galacticmon in the BT21 format. They're having, well, being pretty calculated up in terms of the rogue strategy that it is. Since again, it still has its counters, but still did see quite the tempo boost with all the tools the archetype has been getting from BT18 and going into BT21, granting it a useful endgame in the form of Ragnarock Cannon's ability to reduce the opponent down to 1 security left. Well, that's my overall look at the deck as a whole. And, well, given that we've also, given what the next arc for Liberator has in store, definitely seeing some more potential support for the deck as well. And, well, that's my look at it over. Well, as we close out, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and share this around to help with the algorithm and to keep up with upcoming videos. And this is Sarja, signing off.